doing beer bongs out of a kudu horn and just bonding with them like zookeepers can. It spooked the rhino to where it ran off the trail through the brush, just crushing, 5,000 pounds of fury, avoiding the elephant. We almost got killed by a rhino. And not 5 minutes later, there's a cobra on our trail.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Chasing Wild podcast, your home for all the best content on conservation, wildlife, and adventure. Our mission is to bring the wild to you. We are your hosts, Jake Johnson, Dean Dudzik, and today we are joined by a special guest, Dave Johnson, the founder and executive director of the Katie Adamson Conservation Fund. Dave, how you doing, sir?
Good, guys. Thanks for having me on. Excited to talk to you guys about conservation.
Yeah, we're thrilled to have you on. It's going to be a really exciting conversation today. So Dave's been all over the world doing incredible work in conservation, has a background in being a zookeeper, and as you heard, the name of his organization, nonprofit organization, Katie Adamson, he started this whole thing in light of a coworker and a friend passing away due to cancer. But I won't go ahead and steal the thunder, so let's go ahead and jump in. Dave, why don't you go ahead and start in telling us how you got started in conservation and why what your relationship was to Katie?
Well, I got a wildlife biology degree and I wanted to do conservation as a career. So I went to Alaska out of college and collared bears and thought I'd work up in Alaska. But I really missed people. I missed teaching. I missed the kids. And so I went back and decided that the zoo was a better fit for me. The guy I worked with in Alaska was kind of a jerk, and he didn't really like people. But if you're a bear biologist in the bush, you don't really need to have that skill set. So I hightailed it back to the lower 48 and was at the Denver Zoo for about 25 years. And while I was there, got to work with a lot of really great young animal enthusiasts in the Zoo Crew program, the Zoo Explorer Scouts. And I was a mentor for the Scouts. And that is through the Boy Scouts, but that actually is co-ed. And probably about 75% of our Zoo Explorers were female. So Katie joined Zoo Crew at 13, joined Explorers at 14. And so we were working together. She was a Western Air, so she was really into horses and really into hoofstock with us, and joined CSU and was studying wildlife biology and wanted to be a zookeeper. So she had just come through our system and was just one of these gals that was just super. You guys have worked with them before, super annoying, just lots of questions, always around. And that's the kind that you really want to help mentor. She just had that passion. And she got cancer diagnosis in college as a freshman, Ewing sarcoma. It's a childhood cancer. And she fought it for about 7 years, guys, and kept coming back to the zoo when she was healthy, wanted to go to Nepal with us because we had started some Nepal work, and she never got healthy enough. So she didn't get her degree, and she didn't get to go to Nepal, and she passed away. She was 25. Nice. So she had a long 7-year journey. And when she passed, I just wanted to go. I wanted to do something bigger than myself. I wanted to do something with the zookeeper, something with conservation. We'd already started, travel and trips, and I'd already started writing kids' books, about animals. And so it was just a natural progression. And her passing just really got me to where I wanted to do something in her name. And so I asked her mom and dad, and they gave me the green light, and we started the Katie Adamson Conservation Fund in 2014, the same summer that she passed away.
I mean, I believe I've seen on your story from your website and everything, from tragedy to triumph. Is that something?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, that's a horrible passing for Katie, and I'm sure that was not easy for you guys, but what an incredible honor in her name to start a nonprofit organization and Did you imagine that when you started this back in 2014 that it would grow to what it's become now? I mean, you guys are. I was just texting you before we jumped on, and you were sending me pictures of lions you had just radio collared in South Africa. You're like, I just got back, so
No, I didn't. I thought it was going to be a little side hustle and take some zookeepers to Nepal and do some books and stuff. And we raised like 10 grand that first year. And
hmm
you guys know how zookeepers are. You know, I couldn't afford to donate $10,000 of conservation in my whole career. And so to raise that in 6 months, you know, from June to December of 14, I was like, wow, this is fun. You know, it's the community was behind us, and we had a little event, and people came out and bought some artwork and stuff, and it was exciting. And from $10,000 that first year to the next year, it went like 47,000 in a year. And the next year it was like 81,000. And so the growth,
wow,
and
wow.
now guys, and it's been almost 11 years, and we've brought in $4 million. And so
Wow.
that's a huge impact that a bunch of zookeepers and zoo volunteers can just feel like they've done that all as a little animal nerd community.
Absolutely. And who better to spark it than you? I mean, you were talking earlier about just how it is to, a lot of people in the field are not necessarily people who get along with other people, right? They're more animal people, we call them.
Right.
But for us extroverts, people who get along with people, I think it is important to use our voice, because really
For
a
sure.
lot of conservation, I think, is hid behind the kind of the wall, the science, it's not communicated to everyone very well. And I just think that's incredible. And speaking of communication, I have here, you were talking about your kids' books you've
Oh
authored.
yeah.
I've got 3 out of 4. So we've got, this one here. I picked this one up first because this is my daughter Addie's favorite.
Uh-huh.
I read this one to her. So why don't you go ahead and talk to us a little bit how you got into authoring 3 at the time when I got them. Now 4 books.
That's right. I owe you
For
the fourth now. I got to mail it to you.
Yeah, Addie is enjoying them. I will say the one is a little advanced for her, but she's loving the pictures. This one right here, like the
Yeah.
penguin. It's a great. I mean, the story she doesn't quite get. She's turning 1 soon, but no, I owe you. I mean, you just sent them over the first time we talked, and it was amazing. I really appreciate that. But why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about that?
Well, when I was in Alaska, kind of feeling kind of ignored, you know, my boss, that it was just the two of us out in the bush for weeks at a time. He gave me a shotgun and a gold pan and said, "You go live down there, far away from me, and I'm going to live up here. And if we get a bear, we'll get together." So I was just like, so I was getting paid to camp out in Alaska, kind of by myself, and so I was reading books and stuff and just walking around taking pictures of wildlife. And we had wolves right beside us, which was pretty awesome. But I was kind of lonely for, I'm an I on the disc assessment that our zoo used to always make us take. So I love people and love to talk. And so I missed that energy. I'd worked at the Nature Center in Asheville, North Carolina growing up. I'd worked at a zoo down in South Carolina and Kentucky. I worked at a wildlife education center. And so all the way kind of grooming myself, like, what the hell do I want to do with my life? But when I was in that tent, I started writing poems about animals, and had this one character. Growing up in North Carolina, I loved the sassafras tree, and I'd make kids go find the leaves that smelled like root beer. And so I made a little character. I made several of them, but they all perished along the way. None stuck except Sissy Sally Sassafras. And I needed a kid to preach conservation from a child's understanding rather than me from this adult pedestal, being preachy, but have
Mhm.
this kid that just loved animals, and kind of made her my muse. I let her speak for us in those first 3 books. So Sissy Sally Sassafras was like a little Colorado girl. And then 2 of my buddies from Chapel Hill, they moved and they had a daughter named Sally. And so we had her start modeling for me. So had some pretty creepy looks from them when I said, "Oh my gosh, your daughter, I need her to model for me." And so my buddies were like, "Oh, what happened to you since college?" But I said, "No, it's for kids' books." So it was kind of
It's for
fun, but
conservation. Don't worry.
it's conservation. It's okay. But it was great. And so that allowed me to really focus in on some conservation topics and be able to go to schools. My weekend was Tuesday, Wednesday for 25 years.
Mhm.
So I could go to some schools and just share that passion. When the zoo was like, well, you've been here a long time, you should have weekends. I was like, no, I'm good. I said, I like Tuesday,
That I need,
Wednesday
yep.
because I loved that piece. And so that's how it all came about, Jake, is just this kind of very organic thing that happened. And it's just me struggling in Alaska in a tent by myself to find a way to have an outlet, missing a connectivity with a community, and then realizing that I'm more of a zoo guy.
Mhm.
I need to use these animals as ambassadors, and I need to be front and center in the house teaching, talking to these people about conservation and making better choices, voting for what's right and being more green and passing this along to the kids, because they're great teachers. They teach up to their parents and
Yep.
grandparents. And so that's what I loved in Denver. And that's what, I mean, you guys being at the zoo, you have an amazing ability to connect with these kids and these families. Especially me and being in one building at the zoo for 25 years.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I was recognizing grandparents and parents and kids. It was just a long continuum, and that's helped build the fund. Is me having that synergy with a big block of people from Denver who knew me and knew how genuine I was about the animals and conservation.
You're a storyteller, and honestly, I came to this realization probably halfway through my young career in zookeeping so far. But you don't work with the animals to save the animals. You work with people to save the animals, right? So to be a
Yes.
storyteller and to be a conservationist like that is a huge skill, and you're definitely an inspiration to me and plenty others like me. So Dean, why don't you jump in here? What do you got for Dave?
Yeah, so Dave, when you were establishing the fund back in 2014, what connections did you have at these sites around the world, if any? I'm curious just to how you
Hmm.
got started with all these initiatives around the world and how things have progressed since 2014.
Great question.
Yeah, that's a great question.
We were opening up Toyota Elephant Passage, and my zoo wasn't doing anything with conservation with elephants or rhinos, and that's the animals that I work with. They had definitely stuff going on, Lake Titicaca frogs, Mongolia. They had some stuff, but it wasn't anything that I worked with. And they kind of had this queue that you had to wait in line to get to go work in these areas, and I was just like, I don't want to do that. I want to We're opening up Toyota Elephant Passage. We're getting a new rhino species at our zoo, and our zoo is like, 130 years old. We've never had the greater one-horned rhino. So I asked the zoo and the conservation team, I said, just let me kind of do my own thing. They wouldn't pay my way to Nepal, but they gave me admin leave for 3 trips. So to kind of find out what was going on, because I told them I wanted to work with our community. So that first trip, there were 4 of us. I used our conservation VP. I asked Rich Reading who he knew in Nepal, and he said he knew a guy named Eric Dinerstein. And from that, we met an author named Himanta Mishra that was in Chitwan. And so I started formulating a plan off of those 2 gentlemen to go to Chitwan. And then from there, it just became you meet people in the field. And if you don't have any Western, philosophy about like, I've got to come in and change things. I've got to come in and make my mark and make a difference. We just went over, guys, me and 3 zoo volunteers, we went over and said, well, how can we help? So that was the first steps. And I ran a marathon and got people to sponsor me, and we raised $10,000.
Wow.
And those anti-poaching, I'm a big guy. The guys called me a Clydesdale. They said, you shouldn't, I'm like 210 right now. And the guy was laughing at me. He's like, you're not going to run a marathon. So when I ran the race, I was like 168. I ran under 4 hours, and I got to go back to that running store and flaunt it, and
Wow.
so we went into this anti-poaching team, and they wanted motorbikes. They said, we're trying to stop poachers on foot, on the backs of elephants. We need need some help here catching people that are killing tigers and killing rhinos. And so we bought them 4 anti-poaching motorbikes, with me running a marathon. People, donating to me, saying you're gonna die, saying you're gonna quit,
You're not gonna make it.
you're gonna finish, So I went home, guys, and my family in the South, they all cried because they've never seen like a skinny person in our family, and so they're like, "What's wrong with you? Do you have cancer?" I was like, "No, I'm really healthy." But so that then going back every year. And I think that's really important with conservation, that you don't let something go stagnant. And so we went every year and we would meet new conservationists. This gal's doing hornbills. This guy's doing gharials. This person needs camera traps for tigers and leopards or striped hyenas. And we just started making inroads. And from 4 people one year to 12 people the next, to the third year, we took 18 people. And it just started, just really, blossoming.
Snowballing.
Yeah, it really grew quickly. And then everything just came so natural. Guys, I think if you put good energy out there, you get good energy back. And so we made some really, really great connections, and they kept, telling us, "Hey, we need this. What about a solar powered electric fence? Would you build that for us? What about building us a wildlife veterinary hospital?" That one took us like 5 years to complete. So it's pretty much them making wish lists, Dean, and meeting all these amazing people that are making a difference in country, and just waiting for us to return every year like Santa.
Yeah,
Sure. Yeah.
you
I think,
made yourself invaluable to them.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And I think that's such an important perspective to offer, what you said about not going in there and acting like you know what people need. Instead,
Right.
you're asking them, what do you need? And
Exactly.
I think in conservation and other walks of life as well, sometimes that's something that people don't think about. You got to stay humble and be the learner when you're going to these places around the world,
Yes.
because chances are these people know a hell of a lot more than you do, when you're going to these places. And
Exactly. And
I think
that's
so valuable.
the zoo sent a VP over with us, and he was like, "Hey, you need somebody with a title. You're just zookeepers and zoo volunteers." And I was just like, "All right, you can come." But he went into these meetings and was like, "We need you to do this. We need this from you. You have to do this and bring this to the table." And I pulled him to the side, and I was like, this is not how we've been doing this. You're actually acting like, I didn't want people to act. And you could see on their faces, they're like, "Oh, who is this guy?" But you can have a title, but your title doesn't mean that you're good with people.
Sure.
Oftentimes titles in our world mean that you're kind of not so good with people. And you're not, and you need to be somebody that actually listens and cares and understands. And I think that's where zookeepers really excel, because we give, we really care about the wildlife, and we want the people and the animals living side by side to thrive. And not to have any type of any type of set plan when you go in, but just like, "Hey, let us help you." That's exactly right, Dean.
Yeah, I mean, you don't go into zookeeping to make money. You do it because you care about animals and you care about wildlife, and you want to make an impact. You want to make a difference. So we're getting into a little bit of what you and the Katie Adamson Conservation Fund do across the world. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about that? But why don't you start by, do you mind talking about your most recent trip to South Africa, kind of using that as an example to really give us like, what is a trip with you guys like?
Well, this was our 8th trip to South Africa.
Okay.
And this stuff really started with us selling Zulu Nyala safaris. And I don't know if you guys do that in your AZAC chapter or something. They actually sell safaris to nonprofits, and they split anything you make 50-50. And so we had been selling them since probably 2000, 2001. And if we sell them at our big auction and they made $7,000, then the chapter would get like 3,500, and we'd send this couple to South Africa. So it was amazing. During the pandemic, they said, "We are closing. there are no people. You have to help us. If you sell safaris for 2,500 in the hopes that we'll all go when this is over, it's a gamble. We'll give you 1,250 of that. So at a time when people are really struggling to make money and keep their business doors open, we probably had 100 people step up and buy safaris.
Wow.
And in the hopes that, yeah. And so that was a lot of money for us. And now we've sold by now we've sold over 200 safaris. And so that's like 6 nights at this wildlife reserve, probably about 3 hours north of Durban. But going there has enabled us, just like we did in Nepal and Tanzania and Costa Rica, it's allowed us to spread out and flex our muscle a little bit. So we started working from there with the Southern African Wildlife College, and they're up in Kruger. And so with the Zulu Nyala trip, we added 4 nights in at the college. So let's go up there and work with their canine unit. Let's go trim rhino horn. Let's go put telemetry collars on elephants. So if you're going to buy a ticket, you might as well go to South Africa for 2 weeks. Why go for 6 nights, you know? Yeah. And so that led to all this stuff at the college. And then it led to some work in Tembe this trip. The first time we've been asked to come up to Tembe Elephant Park. And they said, would you come up? And our group of 11, they said, you can only have 10. And then we ended up, like the people I'd asked, we had 11. I said, hey, do you have room at your research station for just 1 extra person? So we ended up buying 2 lion collars, and they had us go out with them on the morning, and the vets darted 4 lions right in front of us, and we got to get out and roll the lions over for the vets. We carried the young males to the truck because they were going to another reserve. You know, it was like something that a zoo would never ever do. You know? I mean, the liability. I mean, we're getting out of the vehicle and they're letting us walk around and take selfies with these lions, and you know, we're with the vets and the conservation team. It was fabulous. And then at night we were eating dinner with all these people at the research camp and having gin and tonics and beers and drinks and just, you know, doing beer bongs out of a kudu horn and just bonding with them like zookeepers can. And we just had a blast. And so then when we left, they were like, this went so well. Would you guys be interested in crocodiles, elephants, rhinos, Sunni antelope, leopard work? And we've got 6 more lions this year. So I was like, oh, yeah, that would be fabulous. Let me go home and I'll start lining up some more people to come see you. And so that's just, you know, just how things sometimes work out for the fund. And when you have a really good group of people that want to make a difference and end up going in and treading lightly, you know, and just making themselves useful in whatever way we can. And so this has turned out to be, now there may be another national park involved. Got to go visit rhino orphanage. So got to go watch 12 baby rhinos be fed bottles that normally people don't get to go see. That's kind of, so this, but it's taken 8 trips, you know? So guys, when we started, it was pretty vanilla. And now all of a sudden this last trip is like, it's rocky road, you know, it's so much stuff going on with the potential of having zookeepers and zoo volunteers around the country come with us and get involved too. And that's when I was talking with Jake about, you know, go with us to go do orangutans, go with us to mountain gorillas. You know, I want to involve people that aren't getting to have that type of impact at their facilities. You know, a lot of zoos, there's the haves and the have-nots, you know, and for my zoo, I was a have-not. So, and I want people to be inspired and to be able to stay in the industry and keep being zookeepers so they have that flame lit. You know, for me, guys, I could work 6 months at the zoo constant thinking about, I got Nepal coming up in November. I'm going to be back in country doing this amazing stuff with some amazing people. And if you have that conservation carrot, it's pretty astounding what you can accomplish in your regular zookeeper job.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I'm constantly thinking about the next adventure, and luckily, my buddy Daniel, who used to work at the zoo with you, put us in contact. And I remember the first time we talked, you were like, come with us to South Africa, come with us here." I'm like, "Oh, I'm sold, I'm in." We having a daughter put the brakes on it a little bit, but I mean, everything you're saying, right now, I'm like, all right, take the headphones off, let's go. Where are we going now? It's inspiring. It's exciting, honestly. So I have a question for you, unless you got one, Dean.
No, I was just about to say my heart's thumping thinking about all that stuff. That's like,
Oh, and
right? I mean, Dave, you've talked to Jake before, so you know Jake obviously more than you know me, but like Jake and I are right down the same lane when it comes
hmm
to obviously we're both at the zoo, but then really, really focusing on conservation and trying to reach out beyond the zoo. You know what I mean? Like you were just saying. So all the things that you were saying really got my heart going because that's man, that's what Jake and I love. That's what we want to do. So I
Well,
love it.
When I try to meet people like you guys, try to take y'all on a trip so you meet the players, and then you guys can lead your own trips. You can just kind of come in, and then you guys are part of what we're doing. Because I can't, I've been on a trip a month for like since June of 23, and that's got to end. I'm old and fat and tired.
no, no, don't age yourself. Like, not that we won't help, but
But I need young, charismatic zookeepers that want to continue this. I want the KACF guys to outlast me. I
hmm
want it to keep having legs. And for that to work, I've got to have guys like you in place that also are excited. That's what gets me going, Dean, to hear like, oh, your heart's thumping, and knowing like Jake, as soon as his daughter is old enough that he's going to want to get out there and make a difference.
oh,
And
it's coming.
that's what I love.
Yeah. And I mean, like I knew, like, and as soon as I asked you to jump on the podcast, you're like, absolutely, 100%, because we're both here trying to do the same thing. You're much further along doing it than us, but yeah, I mean, us as me and Dean Chasing Wild, we will definitely be jumping into Katie Adamson Conservation. We'll be going on these trips, and hopefully one day we can lead our own group. Bring people along, and because we're all doing it for the same reason, right? It's
Yeah,
we're all in it together. Conservation. I mean, you're hitting all the big three: conservation, wildlife, adventure, and one that we don't mention on our podcast as much, but is equally as important as culture, right? Going into these places,
exactly.
respecting the culture, learning the culture. I mean, that's one of my favorite things. Like, I've been to Tanzania and Peru and Baja California. When you get to go to a new place and just learn from the people, their ways, how they operate, their stories, sitting around those campfires, like you're talking about, doing the beer bongs out of the kudu horn. I haven't done that, but just sitting around those campfires and learning the stories of people who have lived an entirely different life than you in conservation, these wild places, is truly an inspiration. So it's
Definitely.
amazing. Every time, I mean, when we talk, I get excited. And so let's I want to ask a fun question. I thought of this one earlier. So you've been a lot of places. You said you're doing a trip a month, right? Without, what is the most dangerous situation that you've been out in the bush, out in the field? What kind of species? Where were you? I know I'm putting you on the spot here, but what's something that it got your heart thumping, like, oh no, like, this is a situation right here.
Um, well, in Nepal, we do what is called Bardia Boot Camp, and we spend like the whole day, like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. hiking in a national park that has elephants and tigers and leopards and rhinos. Probably not the smartest thing that we do, but everybody's come back alive. I'll
hmm
just put that out here on the podcast right now.
Yeah.
Um, but when you're out there, it became a joke that it's not a KACF trip unless you run from something. And so this one trip that we had, it was pretty hairy. We're trying to avoid a male elephant in must around every
hmm
corner. We're trying to figure out where he's at. He had destroyed a vehicle in the village the night before, and he's just taking it out on everything and everybody. And so we're trying to avoid him, and we pick this one trail to avoid him, and we run smack dab into a greater one horn rhino um, that turns and charges us. And we're all, there's probably 6 of us on that hike, and we're all hitting each other trying to get out of the way because there's brush and trees and forest all there. It like a savanna or riverine area. But as we were running into each other, somebody's water bottle crinkled, and it spooked the rhino to where it ran off the trail through the brush, just crushing, 5,000 pounds of fury. So we were all, soiled and like, oh God, what just happened? Avoiding the elephant, we almost got killed by a rhino. And not 5 minutes later, there's a cobra on our trail. And so, so
Can't get out of there.
It was like one after the other. And one of the guys with us was like, you do this every year? By the time we got back to camp, everybody was having a beer and like, wow, that was intense, probably throwing some underwear away.
Yeah.
But that was probably, as far as like the back to back kind of thing, that was probably one of the coolest days in the field, because I can talk about it in past tense, because it was pretty amazing. And everybody,
you're here to tell the tale. Yeah.
Yes.
But you know what? Those situations that get your heart thumping, they remind you why you're alive, right? I mean, those are things that you'll never forget, experiences that you've had, especially considering that everyone got out, safe and fine. I'm sure everyone tells that story to their family and friends. So,
I'm sure it's continued.
Yeah. Elephant, rhino, cobra. I mean, that's the big two and the little one. Dean, what you got? Jump in here.
That's an awesome story. Oh man, I would have been obviously scared, but also just geeked out at the same time. An elephant, a rhino, and then a cobra. I'm a big snake and herp guy, so that'd be awesome seeing a cobra in the wild. That's a dream of mine. Dave, can you tell us a bit about a specific site? Well, Jake and I were doing our research. I was checking out the Bees and Elephants Conservation Center, Research Center in Tanzania. Can you tell everybody a little bit about that and how that came about?
Yeah, so Lucy King up in Kenya, she was doing an auditory study on what was most negatively impactful on elephant behavior. And she was playing the sounds of a train, gunshots, dogs barking, lions, and bees were actually the sound of those bees. Those African bees are super aggressive. And the elephants would all clump together and run away from the sound of bees. So that made her think like, gosh, could we use that for human elephant conflict mitigation? So up in Kenya in Samburu, they started working on beehive fencing. And so every 30 feet, they would put a new hive, and they would attach them by a cable that was strung through the hive. So if the elephants are smart, and they are, they'll try to cut in between them, and then they hit that cable and they rocker two hives. So now you're really pissing off two groups of bees. So that's where that all started, and it's now become something that we're doing in East Africa, and that's cut down on human elephant conflict by like 80% where they're utilized.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we've done Kilimanjaro twice, and this past trip, our dessert after getting down the mountain is to put up a bunch of beehive fences in Tanzania and around Mokomazi. We have a soccer tournament, and ladies that we cook with in the community, and we get and watch the elephant team play the bee team in soccer. So I split everybody up to cheer for the villages that are playing for elephants or bees, and we put up these hives, and it's really helped. So it's helped the people, it's helped the elephants, guys, and it's also helped the bees. And so it's like one of these things. And when I go to some of the schools and talk about this, it's like science matters. Doing this study, she found out something, and it's such a brilliant plan, because it's all nature. There's no chemicals, there's no compounds. It's using bees, and then those bees, they pollinate, and you get more fruits, and then you got honey and wax to sell, and it's just amazing. So it's just spreading in East Africa. They're even using it now in South Africa as well. And guys, I just had a researcher in Hawaii send me a paper, and they're trying to use the sound of bees to scare them away if the bees abscond, and also the smell. And this guy, Dr. Mark Wright, sent me this paper. He said that we've got this compound, and it smells like angry bees. It's almost like overripe bananas, and it's having a huge impact. In case you can't keep all these bees happy, maybe have the sound of them in one hive, and maybe the smell that's spritzed out. And and maybe we could use all of these in our toolbox. But yeah, it's just it's a great story about how thinking outside the box,
Mm-hmm.
and how, like, you know, science really can help solve problems.
It's so interesting you talk about the bees. Great to bring that up, Dean. So way back when in 2017, when I was in Tanzania, so I was in Rotia Valley. You know where that? Do you know where that's at? Over
Uh-huh.
by Lake Manyara National Park,
Hmm.
Tarangire. So I was there for 3.5 months, and at the end
Awesome.
of our study abroad, we did a directed research project, and it was all about. Mine was on mixed group dynamics and African elephants, but essentially our car will go out to these national parks every day, and we would play a bunch of different sounds. Some of them would be like cars. One of the big ones that got elephants really kind of their ears up and running away was the sound of Maasai warriors kind of doing their whistles and their sounds.
Mm.
But we also got to go visit these farmers who use the beehives, and we got to go learn about it. We got to go, try some of their honey, and it's being there, it really opened my eyes to the human wildlife conflict. In Tanzania, it's elephants and farmers, but here in Illinois, where Dean and I are from, it's coyotes and farm. It all across the world, human wildlife conflict is a huge problem, and it's not about saying the humans or the wildlife are correct. It's about finding sustainable solutions in
Right.
which the farmers can protect their livestock, the animals are known to avoid the livestock, and they can coexist. Because that's really what it's all about. It's about coexistence, finding
Hmm.
these sustainable solutions so that people and animals can really work together. So I love that. I mean, having that firsthand experience, these are really cool experiences, and the fact that you've done this now at so many different sites is again why I want to be part of your organization and do the things that you guys are doing. So very cool, very cool.
Well, thanks. It's we've tried to use them over in Nepal as well,
For
and
the Asian,
yeah,
like, yeah.
it's interesting. But Asians, elephants, they aren't as afraid
Mm,
of the bees. It's just their bees are much more docile, and so it works a little bit, but not as well as it does in Africa, because the elephants are so smart and they pass on this culture, so they pass on this fear of bees, to their young. And so they all avoid, bees whenever they come into contact with them. But in Asia, it's not so much. So it's more of like we were giving them hives for honey and sustainability and for pollination. But then the guys that were using all these beehives, not in offense, but they were like, maybe it doesn't work as well. But they said, we haven't had elephants break into the village since we put these beehives in the middle, and they haven't broken our fence, and they walk around. So they're like, maybe it works enough to where these guys are like, I don't want to mess with that and get bees in my eyes and sting in my trunk and stuff. But it's so cool that you got to see that and
mm-hmm.
and be a part of that in Tanzania. And Lamek Mukabura, our partner at Tanzania Elephant Foundation, he's taken over the Tarangire Elephant Project.
Oh,
And
really?
so, yeah, so we're helping him get his PhD to become Dr. Lamek, and he's the one that we've been doing beehive fences with and collaring elephants. We did a documentary with him called Jumaya, and he's now kind of taken over what WCS did for like 30 years in
Wow.
in Tarangire. So yeah, so got some great elephant stuff, and working on internships with him to send elephant zookeepers over to work with him on collaring and bees.
So, slight sidetrack. Do you not sidetrack, but do you know? And have you heard of a John Kyoko, Dr. John Kyoko, by chance? Um,
It doesn't sound familiar.
all right, he is a huge person in research and conservation in Tanzania, working with elephants. He worked with is it Jane Moss? Who's the elephant whisperer? Who's the
Kate
Jane
Moss?
Goodall? Is it Kate Moss?
Hmm.
Yeah, he
No, no,
worked with
she's a
her.
wait. She's a model.
Kate,
Cynthia Moss.
Cynthia Moss. Gosh, one of the Mosses, right?
It's like,
We
wait,
were
that
close.
doesn't sound right.
Cynthia Moss. He worked with her, but he was my professor. So
Okay.
getting to very soft spoken, very intelligent. Like you go out in the field, and he could tell exactly which elephant it was. And I'm sure he's out there, all the time. But it really is incredible what these people in the field know, and the skills that they have from living in these places around these exotic animals. And I think that's why it's so important. Reference in the beginning of your what you were saying, just why you go into somewhere and you don't act like you know everything as a Westerner. You go in and you learn from the people. You
Right.
apply maybe some of the concepts that we have here, but you go in and you learn from these people who have incredible skills in the field. So I love that. Really cool. Um, another fun question. So you've been all across the world, as we talked about, a bunch of different countries, continents. What is your favorite? Now, we've been through most dangerous. Now, what's your favorite wildlife experience you've had? Your favorite animal in your favorite moment, like something that just really stands out as like a wow moment for you. Not dangerous, but just like I know you guys just saw snow leopards. Like I was looking on your Instagram page, which by the way, everyone should go check out. You guys do an incredible job there. Katie Adamson Conservation Instagram. But yeah, what was your favorite experience you've had?
I think, guys, it had to be the first time I was in Africa, 2005, and the first time I ever got to see an elephant in the wild.
Mm,
After
mm-hmm.
working with them and seeing them in zoos, and I grew up in Asheville, and the nature center had an elephant, Henrietta, and I just had just been passionate about elephants ever since I was little, and getting to see that first elephant. It was in Kenya, and it came into this water hole at night, and I was out on this deck by myself, and it was up at the Ark, and I watched this elephant come in. It was just this big single bull, and before I knew it, I just had tears just streaming down my face because it
Yep.
was so special watching him, and they're so quiet. And he came out of the forest, and if I wasn't watching him, it felt surreal. And for a zookeeper to see animals that they've worked with in the wild the way they're supposed to be,
Yep.
if there weren't so many of us
Yes.
changing so many things, that this is how they're supposed to look and act in their environment. And I got to by myself, just everybody else was in bed, and he came and he drank, and I could hear him taking that water and spraying it into his mouth, and then he just turned and walked back in and just disappeared into the trees and in the quiet, shockingly, like a 9,000 pound ninja.
Yeah.
And I was just left on this porch, couldn't sleep all night there, obviously.
Uh-huh.
I
Yep.
just couldn't go to bed, but just was so moved, guys, that I didn't even realize I was crying. But it was very, very much a lot of people have different types of spiritual experiences, and that was mine, to me. And I've told my parents before, growing up in the South, I was like, I said, I'm not much of a church person, but I said, I'm a spiritual person, and being outdoors and seeing that elephant like that is as close as I've ever come to feeling, that movement.
Mhm.
When I was in the church, they used to speak in tongues and raise up and I was just like, oh dang. But this time in Kenya, seeing this elephant, I was like, oh, that could almost make me do that.
Yeah. It's what
But
moves your heart. It's what moves your heart, right?
yeah, yeah.
Go ahead,
So
Dean. I see you got something.
That's amazing. Jake and I talk about this so much, especially when we were starting the podcast about like these moments we have
Mm-hmm.
out
mhm.
in the wild that I mean they're so hard to describe. I'm horrible at describing these types of moments, but for me it was like the first time I was in the rainforest in Costa Rica. It was like a dream that you're living in. That's the best way I can describe it.
Mhm.
And those are like the moments we live for, and it's something you'll never forget. So I love hearing these experiences from people, and I'm sure you've got a plethora of them, but that's an awesome one. I love to hear that
It's
stuff.
Dave, it's why we started the podcast. So Dean and I, when we first got working together, we realized that we shared a very common interest, just sharing stories and experiences that we've had and things that ambitions that we want to do out in the field for conservation. And you know how zookeeping necessarily doesn't fill that cup with conservation, wanting to do more, as you know. And one of the experience for me was back in 2017. I was in Serengeti National Park. We were there for 5 days, and I remember I think it was the second night we are there. And so the first night, I mean, I couldn't sleep the whole time. I like just couldn't sleep, just wired in my little tent with Daniel, Daniel, who you know, same tent, Daniel
Mhm.
Schneider. We're gonna have him on the episode soon, but we were in the same tent, and I remember uh, it's nighttime. We had just eaten dinner. It's getting dark. And, just to paint the picture for people, when you're out in the Serengeti, I mean, at least for us, like the guards don't have guns. They have sticks. This is not like a huge protection thing. It's like you respect nature's way. Nature's not out to get you. You do the right things and, it shouldn't really happen. But so there's this one night, and we're kind of like lingering. It's time to kind of get in our tents because they had a cutoff time, and there's these water buffalo, a huge herd of them, just walking probably 100 yards outside of the camp. And we had been watching them, for a while, and all good. We're doing our thing, and then all of a sudden you hear this huge commotion. And I'm a big cat guy. I work with primates, but I love big cats. So it's why your lion picture you sent me a couple days ago was like, I need to be there. But so big commotion happens, and a few of our professors run out towards the bathroom, which is the only cover, the only like place you can actually get inside was the bathrooms. And they run out over there, and I remember I ran with my professors because I'm like, what's going on? We shine our flashlights, and there's two female lions. They killed a water buffalo, and it's just there on the ground, and you flash the light, and all you see is those glowing eyes in the dark. And our professors turn to us, they're like, everyone get in the bathrooms or in your tent right now. And I just remember being like, I'm not going anywhere. And my Kiffner, my professor Kiffner, who is a German professor, an amazing guy, huge big cat guy. He's like, hey man, you got to go into the bathroom. I know you want to be here. But so I eventually hopped into regardless, that experience, just being out there and seeing them, they had just got to kill, and just them looking at us, looking at them, like being in the same environment. I'll never forget it. And again, that's why we started the podcast, Chasing Wild. It's these wild moments that we want to, one, go experience, but two, draw from other people on our show, just kind of talking about the impact people have had, but also these incredible, adventure wildlife experiences. So I love that. For those of us who had them, we all know what they are, and they get our heart pumping, and they drive us to do more, right? Jump in, Dean. I see you.
And Dave, the other thing I wanted to say with what you touched on, your first time seeing elephants in the wild, that's like a unique perspective the three of us share as zookeepers is working with animals at the zoo, and then you transcend something going to see them in the wild. Like it's so much more, and it makes you appreciate them even more, at least for myself. Like I remember seeing black-handed spider monkeys in Costa Rica for the first time. And we were in a tour group, but I was so infatuated, like I was blacked out of everything. Like some people are like, oh, they're cute and stuff. I was like laser focused, down on my hands and knees, like with the camera just completely locked in because I wanted to capture every single moment because I didn't know when I was going to see that again. And man, that stuff just gets me so fired up because working with these animals at the zoo is really rewarding and it's amazing. But seeing them in the wild doing what they're meant to do in their natural habitat, that's what it's really all about. And that's something I think the three of us are super, super passionate about. So I absolutely
I have to thank you guys for doing this, using technology, using what you guys are good at. I could never do a podcast. I write kids books, so everybody needs that outlet. But you guys, having this podcast and spreading this passion is your way of reaching an audience and sharing that. And when you tell that spider monkey story to kids and to parents and to other keepers, I think it just makes them want to feel that, Dean. It makes them want to experience that as well. And that's to me the contagion that we need to spread. This planet needs us. It needs the animal nerds to kind of unite, and however we can do it together, whether it's books or podcasts or blogs or going on trips. I think the more we are activated, the better. And I think zookeepers, there's no better group of people to spread this passion than zookeepers.
I agree. And I think this is the beginning of a beautiful collaboration, especially with what we're doing here on the podcast. I think there's a lot of stories that, if we're going on these trips with you guys, there's a lot of opportunities for us to share those experiences, grow your work, grow our work. I mean, it's, again, we're all in it together. And again, you are listening to the Chasing Wild podcast. Make sure you give us a like, subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate Dave Johnson being on today. And before we go, because we are we're about 10 minutes out from an hour, I want to give Dave the opportunity to talk about, first off, his children's books, and then we'll get into some of his trips. So Dave, you've got 4 children's books now. How do people go and help the Katie Adamson Conservation Fund? How do they bring these books to schools, to their kids? Where can they find them?
Well, you can order them off of our website, and that's great. And I'll mail them to you. But how zookeepers and how animal enthusiasts could help out is having, like, we have different things, like schools can sell them as a fundraiser. Instead of selling, what I wanted this to be, guys, is not, when I was growing up, we sold Krispy Kreme donuts and chocolate bars and stuff, and all these things that are horrible, popcorn, caramel corn and stuff. But
Girl Scout cookies.
If you can sell conservation, and I'm splitting that 50-50 with the school, or providing that, like, Jake, when your daughter is old enough to be in a school, we have been doing this Read to Save program. And if a school does that, all the kids get sponsorships for all the books that they read in an amount of time. And then their family and friends pitch in. And so some of these schools, they've made us $3,500. And it's the way the school can give back. And so if your mascot is a tiger or a red wolf or a bear or something, we've got a rhino team here that's working with us. We got a jaguar team. Yeah, I mean, so you can actually do that. And that's, buying a set of books is great as an individual, but actually I was supposed to come to Chicago before the pandemic. I was supposed to come speak at a university and speak at a couple of schools back in 2020, in the spring of 2020. And that's never been revisited. I think some of my contacts left those fields, but that's how people could really help us. And I'm coloring in our states. I'll be in Nevada next week, and we're going to be doing some stuff. So every state that I go and do a talk in and sell some books in, we get to color it in. So I need to come to Illinois now. It's not been colored in green on our website. So.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Come on over. You can stay at my house, whatever you need. I mean,
so that would help. That would help out a lot. And and if y'all visit the website and want to go on a trip with us and stuff, we're going to South Africa in June, and we've got 16 of 20 spots filled right now. So we're taking a film crew. We're going to trim rhino horn, meet the rangers and the kids and our teacher and our canine unit. So we're always looking for animal people to go around the world with us. So this podcast will probably help, fill some of these trips with people that want to get engaged and want to go have fun and run from something.
Absolutely. That's our goal. And I know that Dean and I will definitely be on one of your trips here at some point. And I want to thank you, Dave, for being on the show, taking time today to talk. I know you're a busy man. You got a lot of things going on, and just thank you for everything you do for conservation. Again, starting this whole organization, nonprofit organization, in honor of someone you worked with, Katie Adamson, and really bringing a lot of amazing, from, again, tragedy to triumph, doing a lot of amazing things. So if you are interested, for you listeners out there, if you're interested in the books, if you're interested in going on these trips, and feel free to reach out to us. We'll get you in touch with Dave. We'll get you going. And again, we're all in it together to share these stories, to go these amazing places. So yeah, truly. Any last words, Dean, Dave, before we hop off today on the Chasing Wild podcast?
No, Dave, I just want to echo what Jake just said. Thank you so much for coming on today. Jake and I were ecstatic. We were so excited to talk to you today. And this has been an absolute blast. I hope we talk again sooner rather than later. And then, like Jake said, definitely getting out there someday, 100%. That's
someday soon.
I see you guys having a kudu horn soon.
Oh yeah,
yes,
I would have a kudu horn right now. Kidding me?
Yeah, a few of them.
A couple of them, yeah. You don't know what you're in for, Dave. You'll get a new story to tell. You get a new children's book. How about that?
Well, I'll come see you in Chicago soon, guys. And,
yes, sir.
Thanks for having me on. It's been a blast. You guys keep up this passion. Keep it growing. We need people like you. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Again, you're listening to the Chasing Wild podcast. Make sure to give a like for Dave Johnson. Subscribe to the channel. Check out the Katie Adamson Conservation Fund's website. And that's all for today. We will see you next time on the Chasing Wild podcast. Bye, guys.